as George mentioned, I work for an organisation called Create. Just a little bit about us, I think, might be a helpful starter. Create is an enterprise learning centre, and we work with students. We work with academics and teachers from all sectors, and we also work with businesses. We've done this for many years, and we're really focused on supporting enterprising thinking and action. It's not just for economic benefit, but for the benefit of wider society. That looks very different in a number of different ways. We have a variety of programs and workshops and initiatives, projects, as you would imagine. Recently, we recently developed a programme for schools, which was launched last week for the Scotland's Enterprising Schools project, and that's a practitioners programme which is available for all school teachers. And I know that we're joined by a school teacher today, so hello, Angela. And we also recently completed a programme for the Chinese government, and that is for all colleges and universities in China to introduce entrepreneurship education there. So we have a range of experiences, and we're really keen to always learn from others' experiences, and I hope that we can do some of that today in today's sessions. So hello to all of you, and I'm sure that we have a number of our colleagues who may join us as we get started, so hello to you too. Okay, so what are we going to be covering today? I've listed 4 outcomes here that I hope to achieve today. However, you know, this is your opportunity to say whether you think we need to add anything there or whether we need to take anything away. So I'll just take a moment for you to just have a look at those. And if you type anything in the chat box, if you've got any comments of things that you'd like to be added to that, or anything that you think is not worth discussing today, this is an opportunity to say. Okay, so I'm not seeing anything coming through. So essentially, we'd like to have a discussion of sorts, because I want you to engage in what we're discussing here around enterprise and how it can help support the development of essential skills and attitudes. We're going to look a little bit at some of the new resources and some helpful some helpful documentation that's come out that I think can help us as practitioners, and some organisations that can help. So I'd like to just touch on that. Also, there is an additional focus on the new Essential Skills Ambition Statement on self-employment. So we're going to take a moment in the latter part of today's session just to reflect on whether we need some support there and to get a sense of what the sector's doing. And all in all, we'll be gathering these views, and my colleagues at CDN will be pulling all of this together to see whether we need any additional support. Okay, that sounds fine. Let's get started. So just to take a step back for a moment, why enterprise? Why enterprise in education? There has been a lot of calls to action, really, to the education sector from a variety of areas, from policymakers, and we have a policymaker who has joined us today. Hello, Hazel. And from economists, from a variety of employers, particularly at the moment with developing the young workforce, to develop more enterprising individuals and to make sure that they're better prepared for the world of work. So, in education, we have heard all of this and we have seen and identified much of this need ourselves. We know that enterprising skills and attitudes are highly valued. But on top of all of this, it is a skill set that helps to support individuals to cope with and enjoy, how they cope with and succeed in today's very dynamic world. I mean, thinking it through, often enterprise is linked to employability, and that there's often a query on how is this distinct from employability. And, this is maybe an argument that isn't particularly helpful, because what we're really looking at is our individuals and a range of skills and attitudes that we want them to develop. But if we wanted to unpack that a little, you could say that employability is developing the skills and attitudes to enable you to get on the ladder, and to move up that ladder. And if we wanted to take this, simplistic metaphor a little further and relate that to enterprise, that probably what we're looking at there is helping learners switch ladders. We're helping them maybe have feet on two ladders at the same time. Maybe we're helping them get back on the ladder after they've fallen off the ladder. So I think enterprise is particularly helpful in today's dynamic environment when we're very, very aware that there's more of a portfolio type career heading the way of our young learners, or commonly called the gig economy, being able to succeed and survive in a number of different ways. They don't know the jobs that they'll be preparing themselves for or the work environment. So there is an enhanced ambition. And a number of people have worked hard last year to create an ambition statement to really pull together this raising of ambitions for essential skills across the sector and for our learners. That was launched in June, and there was a number of aspects to that, and I've only drawn out one there in the slide that's in front of you. But really, on top of the fact that all learners are entitled to develop skills to equip them for life, to be innovative, to be creative, for a life that is in meaningful ways, we're also helping them towards smooth and confident progression, which I suppose is linked back to the discussion on how many ladders and being able to cope with that the changes ahead. For the first time as well, we've highlighted a particular profile towards self-employment. Now, enterprise is not only about self-employment, but we will be picking up on a focus on self-employment towards the end of this workshop. So there's an enhanced ambition, and enterprise is at the heart of it. Enterprising education is recognised as supporting, other aspects of our work. I mean, it's not, no longer are the days that enterprise was a separate activity or just a workshop or an enterprise day. Enterprising education is an approach to teaching and learning, and it's about, it can really help to enhance our current policies and practices, and that's already been recognised. For many of you, I'm sharing an insight and an update on aspects, but you will be very comfortable with much of this. But it is very much recognised as support and curriculum for excellence, and I've drawn out much of that in the diagram that's shown on the right side, which is really extracts from building the curriculum for learning, life and work that many of you will be very comfortable and familiar with. But, more recently, it's also very pertinent to, the wider perspective of developing the young workforce. It's also highlighted as had an excellent profile in the recent achievement of workplace standards. So, enterprise and entrepreneurship is very clearly seen as a way of helping achieve those standards. It's also linked to the creative learning plan. So, in a number of policies and papers and initiatives, enterprise is a strong enabler to help that achieve those other focuses. But overall, enterprising education can lead to deeper, more authentic learning and attainment. And that's, the area that I think is important for us as broad educationalists to remind ourselves. It can really help lead to the outcomes that we're trying to achieve for our young learners. So I just wanted to stop there for a moment, because although it's in a lot of contemporary educational practices and policies, it's very much on the lips, if you like, of a lot of spokespeople in the government, the educational, the business arena. We need to be creating more enterprising people in Scotland. It's actually often an area where people are uncertain. So before I say any more, what I'd like you to do is to use your drawing tools and put a cross on the question. I've given you a continuum, if you like. So on the left, no, I'm really still not that sure what enterprise education is. or over on the right, absolutely. I'm very, very confident what it is and how I'm making that happen. So can you please put a cross on the line and put your, if you can, just stick your name at the bottom. That would be great. If you're comfortable in um, sharing that, that would be great also. And I'm really testing everybody's drawing skills now. Okay. So we've got Hazel over on the right. She's feeling pretty confident about enterprise education, which is great. Hazel's very much involved in looking at this from a broad perspective over a range of settings. And we've got Sally. Sally, you're feeling, you're more confident than you're not. Angela, hi Angela, you put yourself near the middle, so you're maybe confident in some areas, not so in others. The C could be, I think maybe is that you, Connor? I'm just I'm waving a hand. I don't know if you can see that over there. Yeah, Connor says that's him. So he's on a journey, but he's still not, he's still got areas he probably feels he wants to know more about. And I'm wondering if this one here is a grouping approach. That might be a group response there from my group of colleagues in the other room who are part of the Essential Skills Network. So they're confident to an extent, but they're happy and looking forward to hearing more, I'm sure. But this is a group of people, I'm assuming, who have an interest in enterprise. So you've either you've made some time in your diary today to join this session, or you've got in the car and come here for the Essential Skills Network. So you're already very invested in this area and in improving what we do. I just wonder for a moment whether you feel where you've placed yourself on that line, whether you feel your colleagues would be as confident. And I just asked you to reflect on that. We often find in colleges you've got a number of advocates, real champions who often are to really have an enterprising institution, to really have a mature sector. This needs to be something which is where we have as many colleagues as possible confident in this area, who are already displaying enterprising approaches to their work and their teaching and learning approaches and the experiences that we create for our students. So we've got a range of responses there, and I think that's as we would expect. My guess is that you would find many colleagues in our own back home settings who might find themselves rather more over in the left-hand column, towards the left, still not very sure, and not maybe confident themselves, but maybe not able to explain that to others, or certainly not able to encourage students to do that in the way that maybe would be most effective. So there's generally a wide range of experiences. And we're going to pick up a little on that later. Okay, so sometimes lack of confidence comes from us having different appreciations of what we really mean by enterprise. And again, many of you will be very comfortable in this area, but for colleagues who are joining us that are not, it tends to be that there's different, there are, the area of enterprise education has been plagued really for years by having lots of different definitions, and I think that has caused, that's caused ourselves challenges by not being able to engage people because they're not quite sure what it is we're talking about. But certainly, the areas of, the wide definition of enterprise, broader definitions of enterprising in education typically embrace personal development. So attributes such as high levels of self-awareness, interpersonal skills such as thinking creatively, being confident to take action, knowing one's own values, able to cope with and be open to uncertainty, and being determined and resilient. Now, many of you will recognize this. Narrow definitions of enterprise tend to focus on starting a business, starting a new venture, self-employment, entrepreneurship in that, through that lens. Now, that's not to say for all of us that is not, as important or very important, but for the next stage of our workshop, we're just going to talk about the wide definition, because it's that wider definition that tends to be more suited to broader educational practice. And it's that wider definition that tends to engage more practitioners in this area and gets them on board, because they can see it having, a huge, benefit for individuals and for society and for our economy. Okay. So let's just move that forward a little. At the centre of a wide definition of enterprise is having an enterprising mindset. The wide definition of enterprise is can do, will do, be all you can be, or often you'll hear the phrase make it happen. But it's at the heart of developing, higher level employability capacities, capacities to get on and off all these different ladders. And having an enterprising mindset is also at the heart of, encouraging you to be self-employed, to set up your own venture, to understand how that feels and to be able to cope with that. Now, I'm just focusing on this model because this was created in association with the college network some years ago, but it has now been adopted in a number of different settings, and the linkages, the imagery in terms of the linkages between mindset and employability and entrepreneurship has often been found to be quite helpful. So bringing it up to date, this is a recently published framework, and I did say that I would highlight some contemporary work just to make sure that colleagues are aware of all of that. So the EU published something, Natalie called EntreComp, the Entrepreneurship Competence Framework, and that was published earlier this year. And actually, it's a very progressive range of framework. So it's a progressive range of learning outcomes. And what it does is it splits what we're trying to achieve in enterprising education into 3 areas: ideas and opportunities, resources, and action. So within those, it has 8 levels. And I'm just going to highlight those. So they have discover, explore, experiment, dare, improve, etc. You could read that: reinforce, expand, and transform. Now, the way that the framework is developed isn't linked to year groups. It's linked to sort of competence levels, so confidence and ability to. So it starts with foundation and moves through. And you might find, if you had an opportunity to have a look at this, that foundation and intermediate is linked probably mostly to the school sector, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. And the advanced is more likely to be linked to this sector where we're in at the moment in terms of the college sector, and possibly you move on to expert, but it doesn't have to be looked at like that. So I'm just really recommending that this is a document that you have a look at, particularly if you're putting together new enterprise, new courses, or you're looking at, current programs and you want them to be more enterprising. You may, you may be using SQA courses. You're not about to be, considering changing learning outcomes, for example, initially, but this document will provide a range of, a progressive range of outcomes which can give you some idea on how to make it a more rounded experience. Do we want them to develop the skills of experimentation and dare? Do we want them to improve on that and turning their skills into ideas and turning that into action? There's some useful pointers in this document that I think could help. Okay. So we're all doing different things. That's likely, and enterprise in education covers a really wide variety of activity, both in the classroom and in the wider college setting and in the wider communities that our colleges are situated in. So what I wanted you to do for a moment is literally in one or two words to describe how you encourage and develop enterprise in your college. I know it's a tricky ask, but is it through units? Is it through competitions? Is it through particular teaching techniques? If you could just, if each of you could just give us some words to start with, it would be interesting to see the range of activities that are going on and how you're encouraging and developing enterprise in your college. Okay, so Sally shared with us that she does events. They do sharing online. So very much, I imagine the events are are the students developing those events themselves, Sally? Essential Skills Network, we're talking about competitions, project-based learning. Angela's mentioned that they do enterprise-based projects. There's quite a lot of typing going on. That's great. Please just keep filling up the line. Test my reading skills. Okay, and Hazel, from her overarching point of view, she can see that colleges do masterclasses, competitions, learning by inspiring. So that's possibly bringing in guest speakers, and the same for masterclasses. Okay, Sally invites entrepreneur support agencies to take part in events, and that's very interesting, Sally. We're going to pick that up in a moment. Engaging more staff, fundraisers, projects. Okay, we've got a great Essential Skills Network Bridge to Business projects. Okay, we're going to pick that up. I'm looking at the time. It's running away with me. I do apologise. So we've got a good mix there. So what we have here is just one model. There's many of them out there. Heidi Neck published a book last year on entrepreneurship education, the practices of entrepreneurship education, and she put it into 4 categories, and there's many of these, but I think it's quite helpful. So looking at play, looking at empathy, creation, and experimentation. Okay, so this is just one way of categorizing the types of things that are likely to go on. Now, remember that teaching enterprise is not just about techniques. However, there are a lot of pedagogical, or we could say andragogical or heutagogical, if we're being absolutely accurate, types of techniques which can really develop the enterprising skills of our learners. But this is a useful model, and I urge you to have a look at it. But in terms of play, we know a lot of colleagues are doing activity around creativity. We're doing activity around design thinking. They're doing activity around innovation thinking, and new product development, and that could be put into that category. We know that a lot of colleagues are doing experimentation, projects, experiential learning, and we can see that that was coming out a lot in your answers. We know that empathy is an area where a lot of the research shows deep learning can occur. Vicarious learning, learning through others' experiences, bringing in entrepreneurs, having role models, doing interviews, site visits, client briefs. Really getting into the shoes of others is a very important enterprising skill. It allows our young people to really be able to cope and enjoy once they enter the adult world properly. And it allows, once they leave college, to be able to engage and really create their own future. Creation is a vital way also, and that's really where current thinking is very much enterprise education should be about adding value. And I'm going to highlight a document to you quickly towards the end, but it's about creating artifacts, something real for someone else as part of your experience, whether it's a product, a service, a workshop, a video, solving a problem for someone else, using your knowledge and skills to create value. It's how you create value for yourself also. However, reflection, for those that know me, this is certainly an area that is important and you cannot overemphasize, particularly with enterprising learning, because, it's true to say, although you might identify learning outcomes you want to achieve, it's hard to do that with enterprising learning always, because the learning is organic and it's authentic, which means you're likely to develop a whole, wider range of knowledge and skills and attitudes than you maybe initially anticipated. And that's why reflection is so vital. Reflection needs to be, strategic. It needs to be happening throughout, and it needs to really challenge learners on how they could have improved on what they did. Okay. So, as I've said then, in terms of enterprise education, there's a number of concepts that are at the heart of that. Some of those came out in the answers you're providing in terms of different ways of teaching. There's a whole variety of tools and resources that can be used. There's a variety of pedagogical techniques which are often used, and there's a whole list there. And I'm going to actually highlight a resource which lists those to you in a moment. So this rather detailed drawing, I would urge you to look at the article that goes with this. I think this was sent out as a precursor to today's workshop. It incorporates many of the dimensions that we've discussed, but it provides, a strong sense of what we should always be doing. So what we should be always doing is, we should be helping our learners create value throughout their time at colleges and schools and universities. We need to connect them to the outside world. That needs to be a natural way of working. And then we need to allow them, we need to encourage them, we need to challenge them to take action based on their knowledge and skills. And these little squiggles are spurs. These activities spur creativity, they spur self-efficacy, increasing confidence. But we also need to be aware that it can spur uncertainty, it can make people nervous and feel uncomfortable. And again, as good practitioners, we need to be able to help and support that. This is just a quick, introduction, and we'll be moving on, unfortunately, due to time. But the ETC Toolkit is enhancing the curriculum toolkit. Literally has over 100 teaching and learning strategies in different subject areas. I've personally contributed 3 to the pot, but there's an encouragement to keep adding. So I encourage you to have a look at these, have a delve in. Each of these are clickable. The website is there. It's absolutely fabulous. Just a quick mention, because as we've said, there's numerous changes happening all the time, particularly in the area of entrepreneurship and enterprise education. New teaching practices, new research coming out, new tools, and we found that practitioners really want additional support to explore these, to test them, to reflect on them, to build their confidence. Dewey said, "You teach who you are." If we're encouraging our learners to be enterprising, we have to ask ourselves how enterprising we feel. Do we feel that we are enterprising role models? And I think there's certainly a couple of people joining today who've actually taken part. I'm very grateful to them for taking part in our Scottish Entrepreneurship Enterprise Educators Programme, which was evaluated as making a significant difference in this area and encouraging practitioners to really make significant change in their practice in their colleges, and that was actually making change to their communities. We're currently in discussion to see whether we can put on another programme for the college sector. So I would be interested to hear whether you felt that colleagues within your college would be interested in having some continuing professional development to introduce you to this area and give you an opportunity to test that out. So I'll just take 30 seconds if you could comment online if you think you would be interested in taking part in that type of CPD programme. So we've got a yes from Angela. So thank you very much, Angela. And Angela, what I'd love to share with you is that we've actually, I've been working with Scotland's Enterprising Schools, and we've developed, as I mentioned at the beginning, a 3-module programme that's freely available to school practitioners. So I urge you to have a look if you haven't already online. But I'd be interested in your feedback on that, absolutely. And the Essential Skills Network, so we've got a number of colleagues there that are interested. So we'd be keen to get to make that happen, and I'll let you know across the network whether that is something which we can bring to colleagues. So just quickly, I don't think we've got much time to do more than just gather some crosses, but do you feel you have a whole college approach to enterprise in your own college? If you can just add a cross again, that would be interesting to see. So Peter's feels yes in some areas, I'm assuming, and no in others. He's towards the middle, but we definitely are finding that most colleagues are saying it's emerging. Okay, so I would assume there is work to do there. Where that doesn't set you out as unusual. I think most colleges have strong areas and areas that aren't fully engaged. Or are emerging areas. And I think this is a topic really that needs to be considered as part of our work to explore across the CDN what we can do to support that, because the ambition statement is for every learner. And how do we help our colleagues to reach out to every learner to take enterprise in that way? So it is definitely work for us to do there. And I see what you're saying, Sally. You're not wholly sure as you're not student facing, but you're obviously involved in a college. Okay. Okay. So just for the very last part of today, I'm now focusing on starting a business because this isn't irrelevant. This is 100% relevant. We have said, we're moving into the gig economy, portfolio economy. Many of us are going to have have our own business as well as having jobs. If we think about the statement said employment and self-employment. It had the same level of profile as employment. So every student needs to be made aware of that. Um, Firstly, a quick agree, disagree, if you could just type the word in, whether you agree that every student needs to be aware of what self-employment is before they complete their programme. So we've got an agree from Sally, from Hazel. Okay, we're starting to see some agrees coming through there. Okay, and what we're saying is made aware. That's all. I use that words very carefully. Every student should know what it is. At least have that demystified. It's not an unusual thing. It may be a very usual thing. So it's part of our job then. So really, there's no time, unfortunately, today to discuss this and unpack this. But please reflect on how are we increasing awareness of self-employment across disciplines. How are we actually doing that? How are we supporting colleagues to do that? Is it just the business department? Is it everywhere? Are we not sure? Are we bringing in external organisations? Does it need to be a mixture of both? We've got a lot of questions here, and there's work to do, I feel, across the sector. Just a quick one again, which organisations are you working with to support enterprise? So just any external organisations. Now we've already known, I think Sally initially said she was inviting some support agencies. If you just stick some names down of any organisations that you're using or you're working with. Peter said students may start as sole traders. You're absolutely right. And are we well placed to be able to support that? Is that our role? If it is, are we supporting colleagues to make, to give the right advice? So Hazel's obviously identified the organisations that the Funding Council are helping to strategically support in this area. Business Gateways mentioned, Business Gateway, Sainsbury's, Morrison, so there's employers, absolutely, that more coming on board all the time. They're looking at Gazelle, as mentioned, okay, and that's an organisation I've worked with. Bridge to Business, Emergence. So we can see there's a lot of organisations out there. Sally's working with Incube that are helping. So I think it's also to reflect on, should I go out there and invite more organisations in to help us? Connor's got SIE and RBS. RBS have been helping to support and sponsor certain things as well. SIE have also a remit in part across College Network and Bridge to Business very much so. So just a quick glance across some organisations here. So Bridge to, in terms of actually organisations charged with supporting self-employment, which is just this very final touch upon, Business Gateway is the national organisation. But actually, local business gateways tend to be willing to come in to give packs to provide support. We in the Highlands and Islands run a very large business idea competition. Business Gateway, provide a lot of the startup support there, and everybody should get the support they need to find out what they need to make that work, whether or not they get through to any form of shortlist. And we have those agreements in place, but you might need to reach out. Princess Trust, how are they helping? How are they working with you? Again, they're, a charity, 18 to 30, fantastic organisation. Is there more you can do with them? Just Enterprise, they're the organisation after Business Gate that they'll put you in touch with them for social enterprise. So there's money available, but these are the types of things that we might feel that we need to speak to students about. So it's important that our colleagues are aware of that. How are we doing that? And I think we probably need to have a more coordinated approach there to support colleagues to make sure they've got the information they need. Bridge to Business, part of Young Enterprise Scotland, doing a fantastic job, moving into their third year, there to enhance entrepreneurial attitudes, improve the skills, strengthen the work readiness, working very hard in collaboration with all the other partners. Now, if they're not providing activity in your college, then reach out to Brian. I've put his contact details there, and he will then put you in touch with the local contact that can help make that happen. I mean, we certainly from my hub across the Highlands and Islands, and we work with our other colleges within the region and provide workshops and guest speakers, and there's grants available and a whole host of things. But, essentially, if it's not there and you need it, please say, and I think we need to hear that. Now, we're almost at the end. There's many other questions. How can we build this into our programs? What are the biggest challenges in building these programs across colleges? What do you all need to make this happen? What are we as individuals going to do to make this happen? But I'd like to just stop for a moment now and leave it over to you in the last few minutes that we have left and ask you to pose any questions, and we'll do our very best to answer those in the time that's left. Thank you very much for listening and engaging so energetically. So thank you.